Welcome to An Awful World, but not awful like you think.
This is the show where we discuss whether we would have discovered important advances in a world exclusively full of Haylies and Libbys. I'm Haylie.
And I'm Libby. And today we're talking about collective versus individual living.
Yeah.
Individualistic?
I think it's individualistic.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
So, I think this is such an interesting topic that really, the research on this is strange, let me tell you.
Yeah, it was tricky. I didn't really do much. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I feel like part of the reason for it is because collective living, I get it, it's an idea, but what people really mean is generational living.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily living in communities, but living with your family members.
Yeah.
So actually, I found this very interesting. It's been steadily increasing in the United States. And in 2021, 18% of the U.S. population was living multi-generationally.
Wow.
And that's 18% of the population that has far more mental fortitude than I do.
Yeah. No offense if my parents are listening. I don't want to live with you.
No, we love you dearly.
From afar.
But we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting because I was like, where does this idea come from? To me, it seems more like a culturalistic thing.
Yes.
That's really what I thought. A lot of I think Japanese families tend to live generationally like that, multi-generationally. And then I know a lot of Hispanic families tend to live multi-generationally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, where did this come from? Where did it go?
Why did it come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly. So apparently it's it's rooted in our more agrarian society, which I feel makes sense, right? Because lifespan used to be so much shorter that it was farmers would have 12 kids and then they would all stay because
gotta work the farm.
Exactly. Because when your parents die, you inherit the farm. Mm-hmm. The farm is yours. And the chances of all your siblings making it to adulthood,
slim.
Not great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it kind of started out. It's more of an inheritance thing. Yeah. What I thought was very interesting is in the United States, that only really changed in the 1930s. Do you have any ideas why?
Is this Industrial Revolution time?
No.
I don't really remember when that was. Ooh.
I think the Industrial Revolution is the early 20th century.
Oh, okay.
But 1930s, we have a lovely FDR as president. And it's part of his presidential campaign. He does the New Deal, which is where we get Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all of those things, right? That's when it went away. Or not went away, but decreased because people could rely on the government to take care of them when they got older instead of their families, which I thought was so interesting. But then I think I read something about also World War II. So that happened. And then the popularization, I think that's the right word I'm looking for, of automobiles. So people were able to travel more easily, get away from, where they were living with their families and sort of spread out into the world and whatever.
I mean, here in the States, we do have a lot of room to spread.
We do.
So
we do. But apparently multi-generational families tend to be less poverty stricken, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of sharing everything. I don't know. I just thought it was super interesting that it's I was why has this changed so much over time? And I really think it is mostly a fairly recent thing to live like that. And the only reason I say that is because I was well, how long have we been doing this? Are we able to tell if in ancient times we were living multi-generationally? And the answer is no, because people in ancient Rome, life expectancy in ancient Rome was 27 years.
Oh my God.
Average life expectancy. So they didn't live long enough to be able to live multi-generationally.
Gotcha.
So I think as our lifespan has gotten longer, makes sense. Then the expectation is more culturalistic, taking care of your parents and grandparents, and then obviously inheriting things from them when they pass.
Right.
So that's where it came from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the big question is, do you think we would have both? Do you think we would be one in an awful world? Because the big thing is, so we've done a lot of science type things here, but to round out our world in a world of Haylies and Libbys, what else would we do? Because it wouldn't just be science all the time. Because as we've said, we're not STEM girlies. So if we're not figuring out the compass with those magnets, what are we doing?
That's a great question. So in my head, I don't know how you feel about this, and I imagine that you'll have a response. But in my head, I think that we would live both ways.
I agree.
Because I think I think that there is like a tendency between like the two of us to want to live more quote unquote individualistically, but like with our significant others. But also, I think the family unit would like still be a thing. I don't know that it would necessarily be like all of us are going to live together all the time. You know what I mean? Like truly individualistic living, I think is pretty unique.
Yeah. So something I wonder is how much of this, I'm very pro individualistic living as me personally, but if all the Haylies have different experiences and we didn't grow up just here in the United States in this century with what we have, and I grew up as an only child, which I think plays into it.
Yeah.
I think that some would probably want collective living and some wouldn't. But me personally, today, I grew up as an only child in the States, not with generational living, anything like that. So I like my quiet time.
Yes.
I like not having a house full of people. We will have friends over for the weekend and I love it and I'm having a great time. And then Sunday comes and everyone leaves and I am like, phew.
Decompress.
I can, just sit here quietly with a book or watch TV. And there are times where I'm like, I want my alone time. But then I'm like, my husband doesn't count because we are one. He is part of alone time. But he's allowed to be in the house. But I need quiet,
Yes.
So I think that for those reasons, I am very much pro individualistic society. And I'm just saying we would have so much room to spread out.
We would.
But I am more, when I think of collective living is not generational thinking.
Okay.
Generational living, I'm sorry. And it's more, we all live nearby in very close communities.
Yes. I think that would 100% be a thing.
Yeah.
I think there's no chance that we live, like in fields separated miles from the next living human.
Yeah, no.
I don't need that kind of space, right?
No.
Like I'm the same way that I'm very like I'm introverted in a true sense that I get my energy from being by myself and not from being with other people. As much as I like to be with other people and spend time with them, it's not energizing to me.
Right.
It actually is draining.
Yes.
And so like at the end of a day of, interacting with a lot of people, I do just want to like sit at my house by myself or with my boyfriend and just like decompress. But I think that the idea of like living in communities is really important. And I definitely think it's something that we would have.
Yes.
And I feel like for a lot of societies, it starts out of necessity, right? Because like before we had automobiles, like, you're living along water maybe. And there's no, you can't survive if there's no other humans for, hundreds of miles, because it really does take takes a village of people to raise a kid, but also like to keep the village going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to have like an economy and that sort of thing, which obviously a whole other thing we'll get to. But just to have some sort of like support from other people to be able to help each other and like be there for each other. And I also think it's like not mentally good for you to be like separated from people like that.
Yes.
For, however long.
Yes.
And I couldn't do that.
No. And I always think because people who live in the country are like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine having neighbors who, were that close. My closest neighbor is a mile away. And I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
I understand that I live in the city and I live in addition and in suburbia. And so my neighbor is right next door, but also, and I get that they're like, you're living on top of each other, which I get, but also most of the time we're respectful. I mean, I will say I've had some bad neighbors in the past, but for the most part, most people are quiet. They let you know, hey, I'm going to have people over. It's going to be loud, or, you know, something like that.
Right.
Things like that. And I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I feel like it's just nice to know that other people are around.
Yes.
And it, you know, in my dream world, I choose who all my neighbors are because I'm really trying to make just like a big
Tunnels,
compound.
connecting our homes.
Yes.
No, I get it.
I'm trying to make a little friendship, community, neighborhood, compound. We all just like take over a cul-de-sac, you know, and like connect all our backyards. And that's super fun. But I get that like in the society we live in now, that's not the case. But in an awful world, at least in some areas, that's how it might
would totally be like that.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. Like, I think multi-generational living or collective living made the most sense. Like, I feel like it was out of necessity, not necessarily out of like a desire to live like that.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, like, I was just talking about this yesterday with my boyfriend about how like there are some, you know, people who don't have like the urge to like leave home at all, and not even like leave home like, you know, I'm living in Indiana and I'm going to move to California or whatever, like just in the sense of like, I'm going to move 20 minutes down the road and like still see my parents, you know, or whatever. And like our situations are a little different. Like, you know, my parents live like a half an hour or 40 minutes away, and your parents live like an hour and a half or, you know, whatever. So it's like slightly different, but not really. Like in the big scheme, like an hour and a half versus 40 minutes is not
nothing.
Not a huge difference.
No.
But like, I think that there are people who genuinely do not have that urge and desire to get out. And I cannot understand it. Because as much as I love my parents, and I do, we're very close, we're very good friends. It's not like that. I don't think that would ever be my desire to just like live there forever.
No. And I totally agree. And I think that it's hard, even if your parents are, you know, you do get along with them, because you're just like, well, we're different people and we want different things, and we're in this house. And most houses in the United States I don't feel like they're made for multi-generational living.
That's so true.
You know, like you would be down the hall, and I'm like, sometimes I would want to be further than down the hall. Again, no offense. Sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening, but
it's just like having your own space, though.
Yeah.
To be able to like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I frequently feel like I have to be on a lot for other people.
Yes.
And to them, it may not seem like I'm doing that much, but to me, it's exhausting. Like I have to be on, I have to like be a certain way, be like upbeat and fun and whatever. And then I just want a moment when I close my door at the end of the day where I'm just like,
yeah,
now I can just be me without being like observed by other people all the time.
Yes, exactly. Like there are just sometimes where I would like to sit at home with my hair in a bun that I haven't brushed in 2 days, and I don't want anybody to say anything to me. And if I want to like watch TV really loud while I read a book, I don't want to hear it.
I'm going to do that.
Or if I want to sing Blink 182 in my kitchen by myself, I don't want someone to come in and tell me to turn my music off or to stop singing so badly. And I don't care that you don't like my voice.
Too bad.
Leave.
I have like a twice yearly rotting weekend requirement. And that is a weekend where I literally just sit and rot.
Yes, I just did that last weekend.
Oh my God, it's heaven, isn't it?
It's the best.
But I really enjoy like actually doing it truly by myself because, you know, even when you're like, you're with your significant other and you're doing things that both of you enjoy, but like there are some things that I like that he doesn't like. So what if I want to binge 60 days in or my 600-pound life and eat a whole Jack's pizza and then, you know, continue my rotting on my couch, reading or playing on my Switch or whatever. Like, I need that. I require that like twice yearly. And I just think that multi-generational living doesn't necessarily allow that. But like I said, I think it's a lot of like, obligation more than like true desire to do it,
Mhm.
which I think used to make sense, but doesn't make as much sense anymore.
Right. And something I think is a lot of multi-generational homes is those cultures are usually taught respect your elders and things
Mhm.
like that. And I don't think that people in individualistic societies don't respect their elders. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes that's how it is portrayed. And I don't think that that's it. We just would like to live separately. I think here in the States, at least, we don't live in walkable cities. We have so much more room to spread out. We don't want to be right on top of each other. And that's just how we grew up and what we're used to.
Right.
And so we're less likely to do that. But I do feel like even if we started from scratch, we were the first people on earth, I would still be like, could you move a little further?
Slightly farther from me.
Yeah. We could, our caves could be next door, but get your own cave.
Yeah,
Good
get your
God.
own cave, and then you can be inside your own cave and you can watch your own Flintstones.
That's right.
And I'll be here watching my own Flintstones on my own TV. Okay.
You can make your own cave paintings.
Right.
You may not like the colors that I chose.
Fine.
That's fine.
And if you want to come over occasionally and look at my cave paintings and share a glass of water, because that's all we have in these ancient times, then sure.
Yes.
Let's do that.
And I'll invite you over when we discover wine.
You'll be the first to know.
Yes.
But until that time, please retreat back to your cave.
Yes.
Hey, listener, if you're in the Indianapolis area looking for warm photos of you and your loved ones, you're going to want to check out Hey Blondie. Hey Blondie is committed to capturing people from all walks of life through all stages of life, from a new baby to graduation. Check out HeyBlondiePhoto.com for more information and give them a like on Facebook and Instagram at Hey Blondie Photo. Now, here's something interesting that just occurred to me, is that I feel like we got to experience a very unique thing in COVID of truly what it is like to live individualistically, which I think is why I have so many struggles with that idea, because I think that people are not meant to be separated from each other like that. Like, no person is an island. And I can recall, obviously, because it wasn't that long ago, 4 years, like going to my parents' house during COVID and my mom being like not wanting me to like use the restroom, come inside their house because we just like didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, what if you like, no, we can only sit outside. Like, you can't go into the house. You can't like, and how strange that was to me.
Yeah. It was such a weird time.
And that was like everything. Right? Like going out in public and not being able to like get near people, literally feeling like you have to stay 6 feet away from people at all times and not being able to like gather with people and celebrate things. And I just don't think we're meant to live like that entirely.
You know what's sad?
You really enjoyed it.
I loved the lockdown. I miss it sometimes. I'm like, I don't want people to be dying. I don't want there to be anything like that. But I would love if once a year for 2 weeks, everyone was just locked inside their homes.
You know, I don't totally disagree with that. There were certain aspects of that time that I really enjoyed. But I think that the reason I enjoyed it so much is because I was living with a group of people that I enjoyed spending that much time with.
Yeah.
And so it was like, we don't have any obligations because we don't have to leave the house to go to work. So when we finish up work at 5 p.m., we slam our laptop shut and then we're like, okay, let's, get drinks and sit in the backyard, sit in the backyard and have a beer. And then we'll go inside and we'll binge 4 episodes of Game of Thrones and we'll make dinner. And it forced us to be like closer. It forced me to be closer with those people. I don't know if other people have had that experience, but like the people I lived with during COVID, we were close before. We came out of that like best friends. Like we can, if I can survive this with you, there's anything we can't do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were trapped inside our house together, which like we had a big house. And I think that's the difference though, is that there was a line, there was respect between our group time of, let's sit and hang out together and make dinner and watch Game of Thrones. And then it's like, it's 9 o'clock and I'm like, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to read for 2 hours or take a bath or whatever. So it was a very healthy, like, separation between those two things. And I think that is like the perfect balance and combination for me. I need that alone time, but I also want that like interaction time with people I want to interact with, though. Like,
that's the
certain
thing.
people I don't.
Exactly. And what's funny though is during the lockdown, my husband and I were in a 1-bedroom, 800 square foot apartment, and it was almost our wedding. So it was really not 800 square feet because we had wedding gifts and wedding decor and stuff like that lining the floor of the apartment because we just didn't have space.
Nowhere to put it.
And so really it was more like we had 600 square feet and you could either be in the living room, kitchen area together or the bedroom. Those were your only options. And what's so funny is we had just finished law school, you and I. And we won't really go into all of the drama of
the
that.
dark days.
But my husband was working 2 jobs at the time. And so we had kept saying, as soon as I'm done with law school, we're going to have so much time to hang out.
Live it up.
Yes, we were just going to spend all our time together. And then everything locked down. And I was like, well, this isn't exactly what I meant by let's spend all our time together.
Right.
But it kind of worked out.
It works.
But it was kind of like we could sit next to each other in bed and watch TV, or we could sit next to each other on the couch and watch TV.
Right.
And it was like we were glued at the hip for the whole time because there was literally nowhere else for us to go.
But like, look at you. Like,
but
you survived it. Yeah.
It wasn't even that we survived it. We loved it.
No, I totally can like relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
Of just being like, this works for me. And I think that kind of like living with your spouse or your significant other or your person, just like whoever it is, like that doesn't feel like living with somebody.
Right.
Because I don't feel like I have to be on all the time. I like, we can sit and not talk for 2 hours and that's perfectly comfortable for me.
Yeah.
Like, like finding those people like that where it's like, we don't have to like fill the air with our conversation all the time.
Exactly.
Which we know is something I love to do. If there's dead air, I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be trying to, say jokes and whatever. But yeah, I just think that's so interesting that like truly gave us like a glimpse of what it was like, because even though we had like neighbors and people, we were still living in regular communities. We didn't like see people really, or like get the chance to talk to them that much. And yeah, it was just a weird time. But I don't know. And I also like to think about like, I think it's so interesting how the world has changed because of technology, and like communities now can be not physical communities. They can be communities of people that you meet online.
Yeah.
That's really changed things for people who find out that like there's people all over the world that are like me and like this one thing, or whatever it is, that people can be best friends with somebody they've never even like met in real life.
Yeah.
And they're FaceTime and they find out they're being catfished. It's a whole thing. I'm just kidding.
Whole show.
It's a whole show, and it's a great show. If you have the chance to watch it, it's so good. But anyway, but I also I find it fascinating that it has sort of like, as great as like Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare are, how much of a burden it has placed on government. And I think that government is not designed really to like hold people up like that necessarily. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. Like, an interesting symptom of us moving towards more like individualistic living, or like maybe just like non-multi-generational living.
Yeah. I just think that we would not have a lot of those things probably, at least for a long time.
Yeah.
And so we wouldn't really have those kind of issues. But I feel like in an awful world, we would have more individualistic living from the beginning than maybe originally.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great way to put it, because I don't think that we are the type of people that want to live individualistically like, say, Ron Swanson. No. We're not going to like live like nobody knows my address, I'm burying my gold in the yard type. Except
of. The older I get, the more I become that.
I mean, yes and no. But I don't think like from the get-go we would just be like, you know, I'm going to live 100 miles from you, or not 100 miles. That's, you know, dramatic, but like a mile from the next closest person. I just don't think that that's our vibe.
Yeah, no.
I think that, and I also think that the Haylies and the Libbys of the world would be like, is this safe? If we were like living far from other people, like what if something goes awry?
Yes.
And something will go awry.
Oh, 100%.
What do I do?
And
then?
I'm always anxious.
Right.
So what if there's an emergency?
And then I'm a mile from any person who can help or who like knows more than me. I don't, what? Like, what do I do? So I think that's part of it too, is it's like, you know, there's like safety in numbers, I think is some of it.
Yes.
And so I think that's definitely where it came from. And I think it would be a little bit like that in an awful world.
Yes.
But I agree that I think that it would not be, I don't know that we would ever be like multi-generational living people. And not that there's anything wrong with multi-generational living at all.
No.
It's just not for me.
No, me either.
I can't imagine like living with my parents and my grandparents until I'm, you know, in my 50s or whatever, and then it's my kids living with me. Like I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
As much as I love all of my family and I know that they love me, I think we would all murder each other.
Mm-hmm. Part of me thinks it's kind of this thing of like growing up, they were the people who told me what to do. And I'm kind of like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, my turn. I'm going to do what I want.
And then if we still continue to live together, they're going to be like, well, I can still tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a full grown adult. No, you can't. And I feel like then we would just, you know, get angry at each other for that. And, you know, because of course, the older you get, the more stuck in your ways you are, myself included. And so then if your ways are different, then you're just really going to be like, oh my God, stop folding the laundry that way. I'm going to kill you.
I also just think it's like, you know, there would be so much time that you are just with these people. And again, as much as you love them, I just don't know if mentally we have the fortitude to do that all the time. I don't think it would be mentally healthy for me.
No.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So that's collective and multi-generational and individualistic living in an awful world.
Yeah.
I think we're leaning more towards what I'll now term as individualistically collective living.
Love it. I think we would have a lot of just like friendship neighborhoods.
Yes, communities.
Yes, just like little compounds.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, I think everything would still be fairly walkable.
Oh, yeah.
Because I would like to go get, you know, ice cream and just walk down the street.
Obviously, which we'll do an episode on transportation.
Yeah.
Because I have thoughts and feelings about that.
Oh, same.
That extend to ice cream and even beyond. So, anyway.
Yeah, but I think that's what we would do. I think that doesn't sound so bad.
That's
doesn't sound awful.
No, it doesn't sound as awful as you might think it is. So, thanks for listening, guys. Tune in next time to find out what we're going to be talking about next week. Okay, bye.